It was still dark when the moment came. The sky over the military base was muted in shades of gray, silent and waiting. No headlines had warned us. No fanfare had announced it. Yet there he was, Jungkook, the golden magne of BTS, standing still in full uniform, tears silently streaming down his face. And suddenly, the world paused. Why was Jungkook crying? What had just happened behind those guarded gates that left the world's biggest pop star in such visible pain? For ARMY, this was more than a photo or a goodbye. It was the beginning of a revelation 10 years in the making. Earlier that morning, a confidential ceremony had taken place within the base walls, something private, not meant for public eyes. No media outlets were invited. No live streams were authorized. But something leaked, something raw, something real. A few grainy photos made their way onto the internet, showing Jungkook with trembling hands, saluting one last time as he stood before a group of fellow soldiers. His posture was strong, but his eyes, red, swollen, glassy, told another story. What did he just experience that could break a man as resilient as Jungkook? The one who has spent the last decade mastering perfection, hiding pain, and carrying expectations that few could ever understand. Why did the strongest heart in K-pop crumble that morning, just days before his long-awaited discharge? The answers begin here, with a secret farewell that no one saw coming. The reason behind Jungkook's tears might have remained buried, until someone close to the situation revealed a startling detail. A letter, hidden deep in Jungkook's locker, folded and worn. Not from a celebrity, not from management, but from someone whose words hit harder than any goodbye from the stage, his mother. Sources close to the base disclosed that just before the final gathering, Jungkook opened his locker and found a handwritten letter slipped inside a sealed envelope. It had been placed there quietly, without announcement, by a military liaison who had been entrusted with it days prior. No one knew he had received it, until the moment he opened it. Inside were simple words, written in Hangul, traced with the delicate touch of a mother's hand. The message wasn't public, but one line reportedly stood out to those who caught a glimpse. "You've always been my pride, but I never told you how scared I was." What had she meant? Why did she wait until now? Was this the first time Jungkook truly felt how deeply his mother had carried his burdens in silence, just as he had done for her for years? That letter didn't just break Jungkook. It unlocked something far deeper. And when he folded the note back into his pocket and stepped into formation, the tears had already begun. It wasn't just the letter. During the secret farewell, an unexpected speech from the base commander took everyone by surprise. According to insiders, the commander, known for his cold discipline, addressed Jungkook personally in front of the assembled soldiers. "You are not just a celebrity," he said. "You are a brother. You came here when you could have hidden. You served when you didn't have to. And in doing so, you reminded every one of us what honor really looks like." The hall was silent. Soldiers, many of whom had entered the base indifferent to K-pop, now stood with bowed heads and clenched fists. For many of them, Jungkook had become more than an idol. He was a leader in silence, a friend in routine, and a symbol of humility under pressure. Those words, the unexpected acknowledgement from a stern commander, landed heavier than any award or headline. And as the speech ended, Jungkook reportedly turned his back for a moment, wiping his eyes discreetly. But the cameras caught it, and ARMY saw it. That wasn't stage emotion, it was truth. As the ceremony drew to a close, the soldiers formed a farewell circle, an old tradition within the unit. They had shared meals, drills, hardships, and rare moments of laughter. But none expected what happened next. When Jungkook moved forward to offer his final handshake to each member, one soldier, still unidentified publicly, refused to let go. He gripped Jungkook's hand, then pulled him into a tight embrace, whispering something into his ear. Observers nearby later claimed the soldier said, "You saved me in ways you'll never know." The hug lasted far longer than military decorum would allow. But no one interrupted. That embrace spoke for every soldier in the room who'd found solace in Jungkook's humility, in his willingness to share the pain and pressure of service equally, without special treatment. The youngest BTS member had become their equal, their counselor, even their silent healer. And as the hug finally broke, Jungkook's head fell forward. His shoulders trembled. Cameras clicked. But this time, no one yelled for him to pose. They let him cry. That night, long after the official event had ended, a voice floated through the dorm halls. Soft, haunting, familiar. Jungkook was singing. Alone. Not for cameras. Not for applause. But for himself. One of the officers, stunned by the moment, recorded a small piece from behind the door. The melody wasn't one fans had heard before. It wasn't a BTS song. It was something new, raw, unfinished. A lullaby of sorts. Lyrics whispered about time, sacrifice, and longing. The kind of song only someone who had truly lived the moment could compose. And then came the line that pierced the hearts of those who heard it. If I fall tomorrow, would you still carry my dream? Was Jungkook talking to ARMY? To BTS? To his younger self? Or was this a message meant for the mother who had quietly watched him grow from afar, always giving, never asking? This song was never meant for release. But now it lives in whispers among the soldiers who heard it. And maybe, just maybe, it will one day be heard by the world. Not everything that happened that day was planned. One surprise changed the tone of the farewell entirely. A visitor, unexpected, unannounced. Kim Taehyung, yes, V of BTS. Rumors had swirled for weeks about whether Taehyung, who was stationed elsewhere, would be granted permission to attend the final moments of Jungkook's military send-off. No confirmation had come. But when the doors opened and Taehyung stepped in quietly in his own uniform, all conversation stopped. The two brothers, no longer just idols, but comrades, locked eyes across the hall. No words were exchanged at first. They simply walked toward each other, hugged tightly, and stood there as time held its breath. Taehyung later revealed that he had pulled every string he could to get clearance to be there. He was there for me when I broke. I had to be there for him when he broke, he said in a private conversation later leaked to the press. That reunion, captured only in fleeting glimpses by soldiers present, wasn't choreographed. It was pure. It was real. And it broke ARMY's heart wide open. One small detail went unnoticed by most, but meant everything to those who looked closely: a thin red string tied around Jungkook's wrist. It hadn't been part of his uniform earlier in service. But there it was during the farewell that ARMY members online began dissecting it immediately. Some speculated it was a traditional Korean talisman, a symbol of protection. Others believed it might be a gift from a family member. But soon, a photo surfaced from months earlier. Jungkook tying the same kind of red string around a fan's wrist during a brief fan interaction before enlistment. The connection was instant. The string was a quiet vow, a promise not to forget, not to disconnect. His silent way of saying, "I'll come back. I'll come home." And wearing it on the most emotional day of his service sent a message stronger than any press release. Even when broken, even while crying, his loyalty to ARMY remained unshaken. After the formal ceremony and the group send-off, Jungkook requested a moment alone in the barracks. Cameras were prohibited. Even phones were set aside. This moment was his. Witnesses say he walked back into the now empty hallway, sat on his bed, and simply stared at the wall for several minutes. Then, quietly, he began packing the few items he'd kept during service: a notebook, a photo of his mother, and a bracelet made by a young fan years ago. He didn't rush.
He didn't speak.
He just packed, and then he took out the letter again. This time, he read it slowly, carefully, holding it like something fragile. He placed it inside his journal and zipped the bag shut. No words needed. That was his closure. Just before exiting the barracks, Jungkook received a phone call. His team? His label? No. His brother, Jin, currently serving but stationed elsewhere. Jin reportedly used his short break time to call Jungkook. What was said between them remains private, but one source leaked a detail that flipped the emotional tone upside down. Jin apparently told him, "Your tears reminded us you're still human, but your strength reminds us why you're BTS." That made Jungkook laugh. Not a show laugh, a real, tired, grateful laugh. And maybe that was the moment the healing began. When Jungkook finally stepped out of the base, the tears had dried, but the story had only just begun. He stood taller, wiser, transformed. Fans across the world waited for him, but few understood what he had just endured. He came as a boy. He left as a man. Now the question isn't just, why did Jungkook cry? It's what will he do with the truth he found in those tears? And ARMY will be there, waiting for the answer. Just as the news cycle began to quiet, a new ripple hit the fandom. A letter, handwritten, poetic, and painfully honest, surfaced online. It wasn't posted by HYB. It wasn't leaked by an insider. Instead, it was shared anonymously in a fan forum, captioned only with, "From him to us." The handwriting matched earlier letters Jungkook had written to fans. The phrasing, the sentiment, the emotional weight. Every word felt like him. Was this real? Had Jungkook secretly written a goodbye letter to ARMY that someone close decided to share? The letter didn't mention fame. It didn't list achievements. It didn't even use the word idol. Instead, it said this: "There are nights I lay still, asking if the world will remember me for my voice or my silence. But when I think of you, I remember why I ever sang in the first place. Not for glory, but to be heard. You heard me, even when I had nothing to say. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for listening to the version of me the world couldn't see. I'll be back, not because I have to, but because I want to." The fandom exploded. Some cried. Some questioned its origin. But most agreed, this wasn't just a farewell. It was a love letter disguised as closure, and it left everyone asking, what comes next? If Jungkook was willing to bear this much of his heart in private, what masterpiece might be born from this pain when he returns? June air wrapped gently around the base that morning, but the moment itself was heavier than ever. Jungkook's final military bow wasn't at a stage, wasn't part of a music show, but in a simple courtyard where no cameras were officially allowed. And yet, someone recorded it, a silent bow, deep, reverent, as if he were not only thanking the soldiers, but apologizing to the part of himself he had to bury while serving. His final salute was slower than usual. Eyes full but no longer overflowing. There was clarity in his gaze now, not just grief. As he stood upright for the last time in uniform, a small smile crept across his face. One of the soldiers later described it as the smile of a man who has made peace with pain. When he walked through the last security gate, something remarkable happened. No cheers, no screaming, just soft murmurs of "welcome home." His fans stood with their hands over their hearts, some sobbing quietly, others simply holding each other. It wasn't about spectacle, it was about connection. What the world witnessed that day was the final chapter of a journey only a few will truly understand. But for Jungkook and for ARMY, it wasn't goodbye. It was the last breath before a new beginning. And somewhere, between those steps from duty to destiny, a legend was reborn. UST, when the emotional waves of Jungkook's final farewell had begun to settle, an unexpected moment reignited everything, one that no camera captured in full, yet those present will never forget. As Jungkook made his final rounds, saying goodbye to each comrade, Taehyung moved forward not just to hug him, but to press something small into his hand. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't a gift. It was a note, folded tightly, written on simple paper, and passed like a secret between brothers. Witnesses saw Jungkook's fingers close around it immediately. His face didn't change, but his eyes blinked faster. Later, after the crowds dispersed and quiet returned, Jungkook opened it behind the barracks. And what he saw inside stunned him. Taeyong had written just one line. Don't let the world make you forget who you are when no one's watching. That sentence, short and simple, cut through everything Jungkook had been holding inside. It was a message only someone who had known the burden of spotlight and silence could deliver. It didn't reference BTS. It didn't mention ARMY. It spoke only to the man beneath the idol, the soul behind the uniform. For Jungkook, it wasn't just a brother's note. It was a reminder of purpose. And as he folded it gently and placed it inside the same journal holding his mother's letter, something shifted. He smiled, because sometimes the loudest comfort comes in whispers. And sometimes the most important messages are never meant for the world, but they still change it. In the final minute before Jungkook left the base for good, surrounded by guards, officers, and silent admirers, he did something no one expected. He turned back. Not to wave, not to pose, but to whisper something into the wind, eyes closed, as if making a vow. Those closest to him couldn't hear it clearly. But one young officer standing nearby later told press, it was almost like he was talking to someone we couldn't see. The officer claimed Jungkook said, "Wait for me. I'm not done. I just need to breathe first." That sentence set the fandom ablaze. What wasn't he done with? Music? Healing? A message he still needed to sing? The phrase didn't offer clarity, but it cracked open the mystery. Was Jungkook hinting at a secret project? A comeback no one expected? Or was he simply giving his soul a moment to catch up with his body, finally free from duty? His whisper was not a performance. It wasn't meant for the cameras or the headlines. But somehow, it became the most powerful moment of all, and as Jungkook took his final steps out of the base, the hush that followed was heavier than any cheer. Because everyone there knew, something was about to change. Jungkook didn't walk away as a pop icon. He left as a man with unfinished business, with songs unwritten, with tears turned into promises. And ARMY is still listening, breath held, heart open, waiting for what he whispers next.